Penny, welcome to the Calm Mom podcast. I'm so grateful to have you with us today. Thanks for being here.
It's great to be here, Michelle.
I'm getting it. Oh, there we go. Sorry, I was getting a message that my camera wasn't working, but we're good. Awesome. All right, I'm so excited because we talk a lot about mindset here on the show, but we also talk a lot about the body and somatics and all these things. But you're an expert in productivity. And I know for our audience, that feels like something that they always want to learn more about. They're always seeking to be more efficient, especially with all the things they've got going on. I think a lot of us and the people listening struggle with things like brain fog or decision fatigue or overstimulation, all things, right? Which I'm sure can take away from our productivity. So this is going to be really good. Before we jump in though, let everyone know a little bit about who you are and the work that you're doing. And I know you have something really exciting coming out next week. So let's just talk about it and then we'll jump in.
Sure. Well, where should I start? So, maybe I'll start with the label that I'm known as the Focusologist.
I love that.
And, so speaking of productivity and connecting that to productivity is, what does it mean to be a Focusologist? Does it mean that I'm the most focused person in the world and everybody must bow down to me? No, it means that I'm committed to a practice, a daily practice to control and direct, right? Be intentional and purposeful. Control and direct what I call the energy of my thoughts, my feelings, and my actions, which I wrap into focus to produce more positive, meaningful results. So it's just that it's a daily practice, right? Squirrel, like you said, decision fatigue, all of those things that you said, I was pointing at me, like I get it. And I created this word for me to be more conscious and take back my focus in today's world, but also for everyone else. And I also realized it's been a common theme throughout my whole life. What I've been coaching people for years, what I'm speaking about on stage, maybe because I too have a big challenge. I'm a shiny squirrel, shiny penny. I am a shiny penny. No. So it's just to really create more of a movement, understand what we need to do in order to do that. And it's all about focus is not just about attention, and we can talk more about that. But when we focus on matters most, what matters most, that's how we become more productive. It's really simple.
Yeah. Wow. That's beautiful. And I love you talk about it as a daily practice, and I want to spend some time in that. But before we do, I think there are some people who are probably resigned to the fact that they feel like, well, I'm just not one of those people that can focus. Right. And it almost like they almost take it on like a label or like other people. And I just wonder what your take is on that. Have you seen that when people apply the things that you teach, that even the most, squirrel distracted people are actually able to focus in and be more productive? That it's actually just a matter of intention, which is what I would presume.
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. And, because it's, we use that label or that excuse so that we don't have to fix it.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm there. I hear myself lately, like we slip into negative patterns of thinking and talking to ourselves. And I've got a lot going on and I'm like, I don't have the time. And I hear myself saying it, and I'm now a professional noticer. That's what you get to be as a Focusologist. So I notice what I'm saying and I go, no. I'm not going to allow myself to use that excuse because it means I'm not setting adequate priorities. Mm-hmm. It means that I'm overwhelmed.
That's right.
And right there, that's the trigger, the signal to take what I call a reset moment to sort it out so I can become less overwhelmed. So what do I need to take away? What do I need to compromise, minimize, optimize, or prioritize?
Wow. Okay. So the reset moment, is that the daily practice you are referring to, or is that something separate and apart?
It is part of that daily practice is to make more reset moments. Okay. Like I think if I had to boil it down to one statement, if we just make more reset moments, think about it like this, like people are talking about meditation, right?
Uh-huh.
And meditation to bring you back to the present moment. So, and bring you back to your breathing. A reset moment acts in the way that a meditation does by reconnecting you to what's most important. So,
Mhm.
reconnecting you with your goals, your values, and your intentions so that you can align your goals, your values, and your intentions with your actions, right?
Mm.
So, because we get off track, we get distracted, we get pulled in another direction, we get overwhelmed and procrastinate, or a whole host of different things.
Yes.
So these reset moments, we usually think of them as the big, like, pivotal perspective changes,
Yeah.
and they are those too, but they're also present every single day. If we look for the signals when we're exhausted, when someone else gives us a reaction that shows that they're overwhelmed, what do we do with that? If we
Yeah.
become a professional noticer, then these moments become more powerful and more intentional, and then we can walk through a reset practice that helps us to to really choose the best next step.
Oh, that's so good. And I love that awareness is at the root or the start of all of it, right? We talk a
It
lot
always
about
is.
that. Yeah, it always is. I always say we can't intervene in a world we can't see, right? If we're not even aware that these things are going on, there's nothing we can do about it.
Totally.
Okay, so I want to talk about what it looks like to have a reset moment. Can you let us in on this? And then I kind of want to hone in on moms in particular, how that might be
Okay.
extra beneficial,
Sure.
I think.
Sure. So it's the noticing
Mhm.
first, right? So it's, what are the signals? And the way that, people are like, it seems easy, but I notice it afterwards.
Mhm.
And when you start practicing, that's natural.
Yeah.
You're going to notice, like, at the end of the day, I should have done that. I could have done that.
Yeah.
And that's okay,
Yeah.
because now you're entering into what it is to become a noticer and a professional noticer. As you start noticing and you discover afterwards, I could have done that. And you reflect at the end of the day to see where were these moments? Where could I have done things that might have made my day a little less stressful, a little easier, or help someone else out, or whatever.
Yeah.
And then as we practice, we start to notice them in the moment,
Mhm.
right? Maybe you said something that you didn't mean to say that might be hurtful because you're stressed.
Yeah.
And then you could say right in the moment, I didn't mean to say that. Let me reframe that, or let me restate that. You're catching it right in the moment.
Yes. Yep.
And then what happens as you practice it, you start to recognize it before it even comes out of your mouth. It's still in the bubble and
That's
it
right.
hasn't come out, right?
Yeah.
You recognize and go and correct yourself and find new language, or, and that's just one example. But first we're gonna see it after, then
Yeah.
during, and then before, because it's building up. That's what I call, in the name of the title of my new book, is the reset mindset. Is the resetting itself is an action,
Yeah.
right? It's what we do in that reset moment is we go through a reset practice so that we can start again with fresh eyes, or be more creative, or whatever our result is. But the reset mindset is when it's not just an action anymore. It's when it's a state of mind. Like,
Mm.
we're ready to reset at any time, right? We're ready for this moment and how we can best respond, and know that we're in that state that we can pivot and be more dynamic real time. Does that
Yeah,
make
it
sense?
makes a lot of sense. And a lot of the work we do, or I do with my clients around regulating their nervous system, it's really
Exactly.
hard to catch these things when we're dysregulated, right? So I love your focus and emphasis on one, consistency, and just being like gentle with yourself and understanding we're going to get better at this the more that we're consistent. But then,
Yeah.
second, being in a state where we can actually catch it. Because when we're just like seeing red and so angry about something, it's going to be hard for us to sit there and reflect and like really see things from other perspectives and then reset our mindset. So I wonder if between the awareness and the reset, if there are things that you recommend to get yourself to a place where you're like actually seeing clearly and can do something productive about it.
Definitely. I mean, let's come back to being a mom, right? So let's say that you're frustrated in the moment with your child
Mhm.
that, has been failing to take out the trash over and over again. You've talked about it 100 times. And again, so the the way that you can prime yourself is,
Mhm.
how do you enter into that
That's
discussion,
good. Yeah.
right? Are you already annoyed, frustrated? I mean, that's going to set the tone for that conversation,
Right.
and it's going to be a battle.
Yep.
And my son and I would absolutely, I mean, not saying that I'm perfect, I would enter into that discussion and it would go nowhere and it would go in circles, because I entered into it in a state that created that, right? Because
Mhm.
energy is contagious.
Yes.
So we can before we enter, how do we want to show up? Maybe
Yeah.
one word that says, here's uh I want to be patient,
Yeah.
or I want to be loving. There's actually what I fall back on, especially when the kids were younger, is I read a book called Love and Logic.
Okay.
I can't remember who the author is on the top of my head. Um, but there is a statement that they use, that every time you engage into an argument, that you can fall back on a phrase that helps you to diffuse the intensity.
Okay.
I love you too much to argue.
Wow.
And I'm telling you that it immediately brings you into your heart.
Mhm.
You realize this isn't about fighting to be right,
Mm.
right? It diffuses that anger. And that's the thing, is how do you in the moment bring it down
Yeah, I love that.
so that you're not saying something that's detrimental, or, engaging in. So that was what I would say, is if I felt like I was getting out of hand or they were getting out of hand, because I have a girl and a boy, I would say, I love you too much to argue. And that worked for a really long time for me and for them.
Wow.
But then it got to a point, because things work until they don't, where they go, don't say that to me again. They got a little older and that didn't work anymore. But then we find new strategies, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's really helpful. I love that. That's actually really beautiful. Okay, so then we get into the actual practice itself of the mindset, the reset mindset moment. Tell us how that works.
Okay. So when we notice it, the moment,
Yeah,
whatever it is, uh, it naturally, when we call it a reset moment, and this is important because language, right,
yeah,
has energy, intensity. And I know you talk a lot about this as well, and
yeah.
it can direct our mindset. So when we label it a reset moment,
Hmm.
it will automatically, intuitively trigger a 3-step reset practice.
Okay.
Now this, I just mentioned one. So the love and logic phrase is a reset practice that I could, as I notice the moment, I could say, I love you too much to argue. So the
Mm.
3 steps that are part of the mental model, that can be across lots of different strategies, are step back,
Okay.
right? Step away from the emotion, the way we've always looked at
Yep.
things and done things, so that we can see it fresh. And then get perspective is the second one.
Mm.
And then, ask some questions. What's going on? Is there a reason? What can we do to help you to remember to take out the trash if you're forgetting?
Yeah.
Or, how can we set you up for success?
Yes.
So getting perspective, because maybe there's something you're not noticing. Sometimes that's how people, when they really get curious, they notice that there's a learning disability or there's
Wow.
a communication challenge. And
Yes.
and if you're not listening, right, then you might not hear some of those things, or might not understand where they're challenged. Uh, Even though it feels like a personal act of defiance, it's probably not intentional towards me,
Right.
right?
Yes.
And then the third uh, step in that is to realign,
Mm.
is to find the best next step, whether it's what I'm going to say next, the next action we're going to take, based on the objective that we also were able to reconnect to, in that, when we step back, right?
Yeah.
Connect to the fact that this is a relationship I care about. I want to develop my children. And so, how do I best do that?
Yeah. Beautiful. And then is that also, I would imagine, a little bit of trial and error? Like we try something and then we see how it goes. And then in the next reset, maybe we would try something else until we kind of find something that feels really aligned and like it works.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Right. It's like any
Yeah.
strategy. But I think also, it's most of the strategies will work when you use them consistently, right?
Mhm.
So that's also something to keep in mind is it's like all the different tools that are out there for technology, right? We can move from to-do app to to-do app to to-do app, right? To keep us organized.
Yeah.
But the app isn't the problem. The problem is we're not actually going through all the steps of the process. We're not using the tool in the way, fully. And so therefore we blame the tool and say it's the tool's problem when the problem is within us. So that's important to recognize. And again, it's just that recognizing it afterwards, then in it, then
I'm catching up.
then it becomes automatic. So I get the call from the school and they say that there was an altercation and it's your son's fault. I don't flip out. I don't be like, oh yeah, that he's, this is the third call this week, or I don't do that.
Yeah.
I ask about the situation and I ask if they talk to my son. Like I actually found out that the school gets it wrong sometimes.
Wow.
And that, like the kid that's complaining, my son wasn't even in the class with the kid.
Wow. Okay.
Right. But until you ask the questions, and say, did you ask my son yet, before you decided to give him what's it called? Detention. And the answer was no. They actually just assumed because he had been in trouble before that he was the reason. So, we also have to be a supporter for our children, even when it might be a consistent pattern. There might also be something else at large that it might not really be happening the way that it seems.
Yeah. I think that's really wise. And I think also, as you're explaining this, I see that there's probably a need for a certain level of humility for this to work. Because I think so often we can be like, well, I'm right. Or this is, we can get defensive really quick, or we can,
Who, me?
yeah, exactly. Right. Like I could see how you would respond to a call like that very differently. Right. And immediately be on the attack or something. And doing this process, which I think is beautiful and great, requires us to actually take a step back, like you said, and actually look at it maybe from all perspectives and be like, wait, maybe I don't actually have it right here. Let me look at this honestly.
Right. Or maybe it's not the right response. And actually, I didn't start out responding like that. So my son had major anger issues when he was very young, when my daughter was born. And it triggered me. Like he would, take her legs out from underneath her and she'd like fall over. And even though like I know that it's not intentional from a 3-year-old, like, they're acting out, it triggered me and I would scream at him.
Yeah.
Right. I would scream at him. But what I started to notice is I screamed at him, it escalated the situation.
Yeah.
And it made it 10 times worse because of how he responded to it. So, become a professional noticer. If one way isn't working, then like you said, that's not working. And so I have to thank him because I think that filtered into every area of my life to be calmer.
Wow.
And to realize, that that's really not a solution that's getting me anywhere. And sometimes you learn it in one area of your life and it filters into other areas as well.
That's so true. And there's nothing like parenting to quite crack us open to all of these things, right?
And all those personal, he is also my trigger boy, right? If anyone can trigger me, it is him.
Yep. I feel like we all have one like that just has a gift of pointing out all those little areas that we still have work to do. Oh, what a gift. I want to talk about productivity a little bit because I feel like, especially in moms, I think, but I think overall in our culture, there's an obsession with productivity that actually isn't about productivity. It's a lot more busyness. And people are stuck doing a lot of shallow work and multitasking. And, they've been going all day and then they get to the end of the day and it's like, oh my gosh, I feel like I didn't even get anything done. And I would anticipate that especially this realign part helps protect us from all that shallow, busy work and actually be efficiently productive. And I'd love your take on that.
I agree. And the research shows that, that's absolutely the case because, being productive and checking those things off the box. And in the case of anything, right. No matter whatever level of important, or impact it has, releases dopamine.
Yep.
Right. So, and it releases dopamine by looking at our phone and seeing if we have another email there. So, we really do have an addiction
Yes.
to busyness and distraction.
Yep.
And in a way, it's not our fault, but at the same time, we do have control over it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I created this sort of 3 pillars of what I call gatekeepers.
Okay.
To help us protect and direct our time.
Okay.
And so shall I go through what those 3 sort of categories are?
Yes.
Okay. So the number 1 is rules.
Okay.
Rules help us to pre-decide. So like you said, that decision fatigue. Today, there's so many more decisions that we make than we ever have. And whether it's, what products to buy as we go in the supermarket, there's a whole aisle for cereal.
Yes.
When I moved, I lived in Zurich, Switzerland for 16 years. And what I found really interesting was it was so simplified. Like there were 4 types of cereal. That's it.
Wow.
Like you did not have a huge aisle. And I remember when I came back after I was living there for a little while and I went to the supermarket, I was overwhelmed because I was like, oh my God, like,
Yeah.
so we do live that way. So if we have some rules ahead of time that and they're boundaries, rules and boundaries, right, that help us to stay focused. We've pre-decided. So for instance, in the pandemic, I started to hit the snooze button. Like I fell away from good practices and I reset a rule because my rule before was I don't snooze. So I had to adapt that rule to not only I don't snooze, but I decide the night before what time I'm going to get up. So if I feel like I'm going to bed really late, it's okay that I might say I'm going to sleep in and I'm not going to go work out, but I decide the night before.
I love that. Yep.
And then I'm making a purposeful, intentional, conscious decision and not wake up groggy and think, you know what, I'm tired and I'm going to skip my workout, but then that's going to throw off my whole energy and everything for the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's rules. Number 2 is filters. Where can we put in filters, which is where the gatekeepers came from? Because if we think about anybody who is in sales and they're looking to get to the decision maker, they have to get past what they call the gatekeeper.
Yeah.
And that's the person that holds the calendar of that decision maker. So any type of filter, whether it's a person, whether it's an email filter that says, hey, you're in the CC, that's going to go to another folder and that's not even going to hit your inbox. Wow, that's great.
Yep.
This says unsubscribe. That's going into another folder. So we can protect ourselves by filtering out the things that are less important and filtering in the things, and allowing in the things that are important. And then lastly, and that's how we reduce distractions.
Yeah.
And then the third one is really our environment. And that's how we increase compliance, is that we set up our environment to support us. So if I want to drink more water, then I'm going to have it right near me.
Same. All day.
Right? Otherwise you won't drink it. If it's in the other room,
Nope.
You're not going to drink it. If your phone is face up looking at you, it's going to distract you.
Yeah.
So put it in the drawer, have it face down, whatever you need to do.
Yeah.
So those are the 3 areas that when we're conscious and purposeful and we think about those and we set ourselves up for success, they're going to help us to direct and protect our time.
Oh my gosh, that's so wise. And you guys, if I were you, I would just even pick one of these to start today, right? Like set a new filter.
Totally. Don't go everything.
Yeah, because I think that can have such a bigger impact than we even give it credit for.
Or I could even say, because I believe also in the rule of 3. So you could pick one of those, or you could pick one area that you want to work on. So let's say email is one of my biggest distractors.
Yep.
So I could pick a rule, a filter, and an environment, right? The rule of 3 help to make sure that you're holding yourself accountable. 1, you could get through it, but you're really bulletproof when you've got 3 different ways, right?
Cool.
So it could be, right, you create some of those filters I talked about. You have a rule that you only check your email at the top of every hour for 15 minutes. And then as an environment is you do not keep notifications on, that you use a pull mechanism to pull it when you want it and not have it pushed to you at all times of the day.
Yeah.
As an example.
I love that. And I think you would be surprised for people listening, how much of an impact that actually has on your capacity, not only to focus, but like your emotional capacity, your patience, like all of these different things, because it's just too much coming at us all the time. So this is brilliant.
Totally.
I want to talk about something else when it comes to productivity, because I think a lot of us, especially like high achieving women who are doing all of the things, I think we're actually pretty good at being productive, sometimes to an extent that drives us to burnout, or where we feel guilty resting, or we don't think of rest as productive. And there's like a little bit of an imbalance there. It's almost like productivity at all costs. And I see it over and over. And as someone who is a productivity expert, like, tell us about that tension, and maybe even a mindset shift you can offer us there for those of us who are really good at getting stuff done, but are just running ourselves ragged.
Right. Well, I think that part of the problem is that we know it, but we don't do what we know. We
Come
know we
on.
need to take a break.
Come on.
We know we need to rest. I'm one of those people. I'm a productivity warrior. I mean, I almost missed in my first book. I talk about how I almost missed one of my best friend's wedding because I had to do one more thing. And it, like in the grand scheme of things, was not important. Came in just before she started walking, got into my seat, embarrassed as hell, right?
Yeah.
Like sometimes it takes like something like that for you to be like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like look in the mirror and see how ridiculous you look to yourself and everyone else.
Wow.
And I made other people late because they were in the car. So, and I've never been so embarrassed and ashamed in my life, really. So I think that was the big shift and the reset moment for me. Like I say, there are those big moments in shifting in perspective is we've got to focus on what's most important. Maybe it's, if you're one of those people, you're that productivity warrior, is to recognize that productivity isn't the point. It's not the point to be more productive. The point is to reach our objectives faster. And being productive
Really good.
is about, like you mentioned the word capacity earlier, that emotional, that mental capacity. It's about, we're not creative when we're busy and have every minute of every day planned.
No.
Like right now, I'm kind of in that mode because my book is launching. And I'm not, if I were to need creativity from myself, I wouldn't get it because my brain is totally overloaded. So we have to build those reset moments to recharge into our daily workflow. And I just want to bring across that it's actually possible to do it in a very short amount of time. We think that it has to be a long amount of time. And of course, I do recommend that you go to the gym, you move your body, but it is possible between this activity and the next activity that you just take 60 seconds to deep breathe, to walk outside and ground yourself as you're doing that breathing. I have, where are they? I have essential oils. So just take some lemon essential oils. This one's lavender. Between meetings, I'll just, because our fastest path to, you talked about our nervous system, right? And our sympathetic nervous system's fastest way to break the compounding stress is to take that 60-minute reset. And actually Thrive Global with Ariana Huffington, they are actually embedding these 60-second resets in the daily workflow by a breathing app that automatically loads, or, in various different ways. And they're seeing amazing results just from these 60-second resets.
That's it. That's so good. I heard this phenomenon, I guess it's a label for a phenomenon, but called nexting, where so many of us are just going all day long from one thing to the next, one task to the next, one conversation to the next, one meeting to the next, with no space in between. And that has significant impact on our mental, emotional, spiritual health, our sleep, all these different things. So that's what you're really coming against, is like, hey, can we take 1 minute in between tasks in this transition to, yes, regulate our nervous system and also reflect and breathe and like connect and all of these different things. I think that's such a great reminder and an invitation for everyone listening. Like you can incorporate that so easily, just a reminder to take that time between tasks.
Exactly. Who doesn't have 60 seconds, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't, then you've got bigger problems.
Yeah, and that's productive, right? That's like part of shifting what we think of as productive.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. All right, so for the book's coming out as we're recording this in real time next week. So this is the begin. Is it going to be the beginning? Yes, she's holding it there. We'll put that picture as our cover photo. It's coming out at the beginning of September. So by the time you guys hear this, it will be out. Grab your copy. I'll link it in the show notes. But we've talked about a little bit about the reset. This is a whole book. What do the women listening, what do you want them to know about this book? Why should they pick it up? How's it going to impact them in particular? Why do they need to read it?
I think, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves as women. Like you said, we feel like we have to do it all,
Yeah.
and prove ourselves, uh, and and we don't take the time for ourselves
Yeah.
that we need. And we don't set the boundaries. So I think it's just a great book to help us to reconnect to why it's
Mm-hmm.
important for our mental health, our physical health, like you said, it affects sleep, it affects our emotional regulation.
Yes.
So that we show up in the best way that we can,
Yeah.
because we all want to be a great partner. Um, we all want to be a better parent. Like the worst thing someone could say to me is you're a bad mom, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so just bringing ourselves back into some simple strategies that help give us permission, and some clear, simple strategies and language to fall back on, is going to be nurturing.
Oh, that's beautiful. And I even love the name about resetting, because it's never too like late to reset. We don't have to wait, 10 years and then our kids are grown out of the house and we're like, man, I've been doing this in a way that I didn't even realize wasn't working. It's like, no, like let's take a step back today and look at it today and realign today. And we can always just kind of pivot and adjust. And I think that brings so much, at least for me, that brings so much comfort, because it's like, all right, I didn't get it right in that moment, but tomorrow, right, or the next time it comes up, I now have this awareness that I'm going to approach it differently. And that's what you're offering women. It's beautiful.
Absolutely.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks so much for being with us. I'm going to link the book, but everyone who wants to learn more from the Focusologist, from a productivity expert, where can they find you? Where can they learn more?
Sure, they can. I mean, I'm on all the social channels, LinkedIn, link in with me, definitely reach out, comment on some of the posts and everything, so I know what's resonating with you. My general website is pennyzenker360.com, or Penny's Keynote. And the book site is theresetmindset.net.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for putting this out into the world. I think as a collective, we need this book. So I'm so grateful. And thanks for making the time to be with us today. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thanks for having me.
Perfect.